Hey fam, how you doing? It's Lady T here. So, doing this real quick intro to the video that you are about to watch. So I'm just going to say this, okay? It's a little bit different. Now, the quality is great. I mean, the quality, the content is great. But the visually, it's slightly different to what you're used to. That's because this video was actually recorded back in 2020, knee deep in COVID. Yes. So it was recorded then on Zoom and it was never released. I'll tell you why it was never released then, because I was going through a transition period and yeah, it was just long. But anyway, I've decided, you know what? I'm going to release this video. The topic is very sensitive and it is talking about pornography and sex and a whole bunch of things around that. So you have been warned. But all the same, be blessed by it, but most importantly, be changed and impacted to do something different and encourage somebody else who might be going through this particular topic and share it with them and know that things can get better. Anyways, enjoy the episode. But as usual, make sure that you like, subscribe, and, join the conversation in the comment section. God bless. Hi guys, and welcome to Kandid podcast with me, Lady T. How you doing? This is a podcast where I dive into many topics and issues relating to faith, relationships, life, politics, and so much more. Now, a little disclaimer for today. Before I get into the episode, today's discussion will be of a graphic and sensitive nature with references to sex, sexual language, and mentions of genitalia as well. So, today, I'm going to be talking about pornography and sex addiction. One of the most taboo subjects to talk about, whether you're a Christian or non-Christian. Now, I was looking for some statistics, and here are some of the statistics that I found. Digest this information before we get into the conversation today. Pornography is very prevalent in our society, and porn addiction affects 5 to 8% of adults. People addicted to porn spend at least 11 to 12 hours per week viewing porn. Most people who have a porn addiction say that porn hurts their relationships. Many conditions co-occur with porn addictions, such as anxiety, depression, sex addiction, social anxiety, and substance use disorder. Now, the most authoritative British survey conducted by the British Board of Film Classifications in 2019 found that 51% of 11 to 13-year-olds reported having seen online porn at some point, rising to 66% of 14 to 15-year-olds. Some children reported seeing it when they were as young as 7 or 8 years old. Often, first exposure is unintentional. 62% of children aged 11 to 13 who'd seen it said that was the case. Now, this next set of statistics was taken back in 2015. I will do an updated one as well. And this was an article that was on Premier Christian Radio website when they did an investigation into it. And it said there are 30% of church leaders who access porn on the internet more than once a month. 42% of men say they have a porn addiction. 90% of Christians believe the church does not adequately support those who struggle with pornography use. 75% of Christian men view pornography on a monthly or less regular basis. And 10% of Christian men say they have paid for sex. Now, this next set of statistics was part of an article on Christian Concern. And these were the statistics as of 2019. And it reported that one porn website reported 42 billion visits in 2019 alone. That's just 2019. That's 150 million visits per day or better yet, over 80,000 visits per minute. A recent survey also found that 94% of children had been exposed to porn by the age of 14, and another survey found that 79% of men and 76% of women aged 18 to 30 years old said that they view pornography at least once a month. 36% view pornography at least daily. 20% of men admit to watching porn online at work. And 25% of all search engine requests are pornography related. That's 68 million per day. Now, these shocking statistics are not restricted to non-Christians, because 57% of pastors and 64% of youth pastors admit that they have actually struggled with porn either currently or in the past. 42% of practicing Christians in the UK say they have a porn addiction, with over 50% admitting viewing adult content at least once a month. 90% of Christians believe that the church does not adequately support those who struggle with porn addiction use or pornography use. Now, I don't know about you, but those are some seriously staggering statistics, one that affects Christians too, and it's a pandemic in itself. Now, to my guest today to talk about this, he's a former pornography, masturbation, prostitute addict. Welcome, Elisha Kolade. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. So when you're hearing those statistics, what was going through your mind? Did it surprise you?
Not really, because I think the monthly view of
Mm.
Pornhub actually is 3 billion search per month. So I'm not really surprised because it's actually increasing. So I'm not really surprised. So
Wow, 3
uh,
billion a month. So a real quick question, I guess, is what do you think is causing such a surge for Pornhub to have 3 billion, views per month? Not even in a year, or not even in, over a 10-year period, but per month, because that is quite alarming and very worrying.
I mean, like you all know, we are all sexual beings. Everybody's got vagina, everybody's got a penis. So the
Mhm.
question is, this question of sex will always be part of who we are as
Mhm.
human. So anywhere you can have knowledge or information about the subject, human being we tend to go towards it.
Mm.
So because of the internet, I don't think it's new because of the internet. Even pre-internet, people will look for magazine, Playboy. Is because now that we have internet, we have analytics and we have statistics. We can actually kind of take data as to, okay, who are the number of people going to a particular page.
Mm.
Before is all about, oh, how many Playboy magazine are we selling,
Right.
how many number of magazine are we selling. So people, it's difficult for you to get that statistics, but it's been there, it's not
Mm.
new. It's
Mm.
just now that we're on the internet, it was like, whoa.
It's a
So
lot
with
more
the
heightened.
Yeah, so now with the internet and every technology platform, social media, clubhouse, any platform you can ever think of that you have human being gathering as a community, this information, this content is there. So
Wow, it's crazy. I mean, just I was just reading, like, just preparing while I was preparing for this episode, and I was just like, I'm like, wow, this really is a pandemic. It really is. It's a big deal, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So we're going to talk about you. I've got some questions. I've got a few questions that were asked from men, to ask you about the whole porn addiction, sex addiction, everything like that, and just your thoughts on it. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But let's start off with your journey, because this is one conversation that I've wanted to have for a very long time, and I guess this is the right time to have it, because finding the right person to talk about it is just as important when you want to talk about these type of things. So let's start off with your story, because I mean, I was reading your bio and just how it all started for you, and I was just like, I guess reading the statistics and from your story, it makes sense because of how early
Yes,
one is exposed to porn such a young age.
absolutely.
And that, so I was just like, it kind of correlates. So with yours, let's start with you. When when was the first time you were exposed to porn, and who exposed you to it? And was it
So,
intentional or was it unintentional?
actually, let me answer that question. I'll probably say it was more of an intentional, but let's look at the story. So for me, I grew up in a family of four as the first child. I'll probably say to myself, I had a very good upbringing,
Mm-hmm.
very hardworking parents. But I think when it comes to how they interact with myself as the first child, there was quite a lot of what I call tension around myself. I mean, when it relates to my behavior, there was certain standard that was
Mm-hmm.
expected of me as a first child. I mean, you grew up in an African home, so you
Oh
have this,
yeah, I'm
so you have
first of
this
all as well.
constant pressure as to, okay, this is what other children are doing. So I was constantly being compared to my siblings, compared to my relations. So I felt I was always the center of negativity growing up. I always look for a way of escape. So for me, staying at home with my parent was the last thing I wanted to do, because there was something, I just felt there's something about me. There was constant negativity why I wasn't good enough. I wasn't behaving like other children. So when you have a young boy growing up in this kind of environment, the last thing you wanted to do is to stay in that environment. You will
Mm-hmm.
look for every avenue of escape.
Mm-hmm.
So that then led to me looking for a way of escape, which started, I mean, which ended up me spending more time with the friends, with family friends home. After school, rather than coming home, I'll just go to my friend's home, my family friend's home, just stay there. So one of this day in a summer evening, I mean, so I call it a summer day. All my I'll probably say one of the key things that I've had in my life, the biggest change always happened in the summertime. So he invited me and said, Elisha, I'm going to show you something you've not seen before. And I'm thinking, come on, we're young ones, we watch movies and stuff like that. So then it was the whole time of VHS. I don't know whether you're still old or you're young enough. But anyway,
I can attest to the VHS.
okay.
Yes, I am a child of that age. I am a child of the VHS age. So yeah, I know.
So so he inserted the VHS, and you know, could you imagine a young boy, 12 years old, for the first time looking at vagina, looking at breast naked, looking at penis? And it was kind of like an earthquake, because
Wow.
you're a young guy and you're thinking, wow, look at what that guy on screen is doing. I've got a penis. But for the first time, you're actually looking at what the guy was doing with the same thing you have within your two legs, between your two
Yeah.
legs. And you're looking at the girl. That, wow. So I was sitting down there for the first time in my life thinking, what is going on here? What are they doing? So my friend were just looking at it, but it was a total confusion in my head. Like, wow, what is going on? So I went back home that very evening, and I couldn't get that image out of my head. I couldn't wait to wake up the next day, go to school, and straight back to my friend's home. So because for a 12 years old, seeing sex, there's a total confusion. And I go home, I went back to his house the same day, next day, and he says, okay, Elisha, you know what? I won't be able
How old
to
was your friend? Sorry, can I just ask? How old was your friend at this point? Were they
we're the same age. We're probably the
same
same age.
age?
Yeah,
Wow.
probably the
Okay.
same age.
Wow.
And he said to me this particular afternoon, okay, Elisha, you know what? I won't be able to stay with you, but you can stay at home. If my parents are coming, or if you hear any knock, quickly switch it off, because we're family friends. So I was just there, and that
Wow.
began my journey towards porn. So something began to happen, because then I then realized that everybody in school was into it. All the boys were into it. Then from VHS, we now started exchanging Playboy magazine. So it was more fun. Everybody would try to steal from their parents to buy Playboy magazine, and we're all exchanging Playboy magazine, exchanging VHS. So it was kind of like you're part of the group. So it's like I wrote it in my book. It was like a carcass. So everybody come in, bring us, exchange. Okay, have you had this magazine this week? So it's kind of like everybody goes through the magazine, goes through VHS. So we're all exchanging. while all this was going on, I was having this emotional, I call it now I understand there's a sexual urge, but it was building up, but I didn't know what it was. So this particular day, I had both of my parents were in the living room having a conversation. My two siblings were in a boarding house, and I was in the living room in my own room alone. And I've built up this so much pressure. I was watching Playboy magazine. My parents never knew what was going on, and for the first time, I was rubbing myself on the bed. I didn't know what I was doing as a 12 years old. I was rubbing myself on the bed constantly. Maybe I never knew what was going on. But somehow, maybe 20, 30 minutes into that, rubbing my body on the bed, I had the first experience of ejaculation. So
Wow.
when I had the ejaculation, it was like a sense of relief. Like all those pressure just boom, just disappeared. I'm like, wow, okay. So in my head, I was connecting that, okay, this is an outlet to get rid of the pressure I've built up whenever I'm watching porn. You see, as a young child, I'm building up this process in my head that whenever I'm watching porn and the pressure comes around, all I have to do is rub myself on the bed. It was when I was perfecting the process of masturbation, I realized, okay, rather than rubbing myself on the bed, I can start playing with my private parts. So that began the introduction to masturbation. So at a very young age, I wake up very early in the morning, probably about 3 or 4 o'clock, bring out my Playboy magazine, and I will just be going through page by page, page by page, and I'll be masturbating. By the time I got to age 15,
And your parents didn't know anything that was going on. They didn't
I
know
just, you see, I never,
at all.
up to date, I always ask myself questions because my mom would come to our room. My mom then, she's got a very loud baritone voice like myself. Oh, you boys need to clean up your room. But she never checked underneath my bed, which was stash, which was full of Playboy magazine. I don't know how she never checked underneath my bed. It was full of Playboy magazine, but she never checked.
But maybe because she thought that you're 12 years old. What would you know about
Of
that?
course.
Like you're an upstanding child. You're a good kid.
A
Well, to
Christian,
them, yeah,
in a Christian
Christian.
home,
Yeah, exactly. So they wouldn't expect for you to
never.
be in that kind of thing. And I think that's the thing with a lot of like African parents or Christian Christian homes, that
Absolutely.
because of the way you brought up your child, you don't expect them at such a young age to know or be exposed to sexual sexual graphics or sexual content
Absolutely.
and whatnot. And it makes me think, and this is the question I want to ask you actually, did your parents ever talk to you about sex and the reproductive system like at a young age at all, or was it one of those unspoken things that never happens? Because I feel like that's a thing in African
Um,
households.
this is gonna sound funny. I said it in my book. The very first word my mom said to me about sex, you're probably gonna laugh. My mom said to me, I think my mom could see that I was eating the puberty age. She could see the young boy changing. I was so conscious of myself. You know what my mom always said to me when I'm going out? Never impregnate a lady. That was my introduction to sex education. That was me. If you impregnate any lady, you look after her. That was the only word she kept saying before she left this world, before she died. Don't impregnate a lady. Never impregnate a lady. I can see the way you're going up and down, combing your hair. Be careful. And I'm thinking, what? What do you mean by impregnating a lady? I don't know. I don't even know what that means. So you can see the first exposure to the subject of sex was never impregnate a lady. What
Yeah.
does that mean for a 12 years old, for a 13 years old? There was no foundation for me to actually comprehend what my mom was saying. So that was it anyway. So at the age of 15, I lost my mom, unfortunately. So, and I remember this particular day, my friend came to me, this same group of friends. That's why you gotta be careful with the kind of friends you hang out with. The guy
This
said,
is it. This is it.
oh, you know what? We've been having fun with Playboy magazine, VHS. Why don't we now try out what we've been watching? I mean, I didn't have audacity. I like, what do you mean? I called the guy G in my book just for confidential reasons. He said, look, we need to go to a place. That's okay. We arrange. We said, look, guys, we need to have some money with us. We hold some money with ourselves. And for the first time, I was exposed to brothel, where prostitute are.
At the age of 15?
Age of 15. And, I entered, and you see all this lady lying up. And my friend said, Elisha, all you have to do is give them the money and you go into the room. I still remember very well the lady saying to me, "Was this your first time?" I said, yes. And that was my introduction to prostitute. So that started the journey. So now you could see my exposure to sex, my understanding of the subject as kind of like as a young teenager was already distorted.
Because you're thinking, so
Watch
you're 15
porn,
years old, yeah.
masturbate, sleep
This is
with
what,
prostitutes.
yeah, this is what sex, yeah. That was your definition of what sex is.
That was my definition of sex. So that was my lifestyle. That was it. So prostitute, I wasn't even thinking of having a normal girlfriend, because to me, I don't need, all I have to do is watch porn, masturbate, or when I don't want to masturbate, just go and sleep with a prostitute. So that was my lifestyle. But as that was going on as well, something began to take place. And what began to take place was that initially when I started watching porn, I could watch porn for 5 minutes and I'll have erection. But what happened was the more porn I consume and the more I masturbate, I realized that I needed more of those more content in order to have erection. And that's what tends to happen. So rather than spending 5 minutes watching porn, the trajectory, the graph was, I was now moving from 5 minutes to 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, looking for something that would give me that erection, that would give me that ability to ejaculate, because normal materials was no more stimulating my mindset, my mind. That's the biggest challenge. And that is the normal common denominator you find across any individual. You find whenever you start with porn, you start looking for new stuff. So I ended up spending more time locked up in my house, 4 to 5 hours, looking for materials that would just give me stimulation. Before you know it, it was having an impact on my education, because rather than going to school, going to college, because that will happen, because I was so consumed with the urge for sex. Because look at a young boy from 12 years old. By the time I was 20, my entire mindset, my entire thought was masturbation. And not only that, by the time you masturbate 2 to 3 times a day,
was that how many times per day were you actually masturbating?
I'll probably say averagely twice a day. Because
really, how although you're not really supposed to, but on average, what is the maximum amount that men do that? Like,
I think that's the challenge, because men are primarily driven by image.
right.
So when you're consumed with sex and the urge is just there, they just keep going. That's why you can see some people doing it 3 to 4 times a day.
Wow.
And what tends to happen is most men will not tell you this, but I was then having bruises, cuts around my private part, because that's what happened. Because you keep self-pleasing the same part of the body, and the sex for the private part is so sensitive. The skin around the private part for a man penis is so sensitive, and before you know it, I was having cuts and bruises. Now, what made it so bad, so worse, is that even though I'm having cuts and bruises, the urge for masturbating was still there. So it was like me looking for a particular side around my private part that hasn't got cut.
Whoa.
I'm having pain, and I don't want to masturbate, but the urge was just so much I had to masturbate. So sometimes I'll be crying because the pain, the cuts, some of them are not healing. Some of them, as I'm masturbating, the cuts are opening up, you have blood. Sometimes I'll go to the GP, I'll say to the GP, to the doctor that, look, I need help. Then my health was a mess. Man, I was having my swollen, constant abdominal pain. And the GP will be looking at me thinking, oh, Elisha, what's wrong with you? Maybe you're having too much of sugar. And there I'll be lying down on the bed thinking, I'm not having too much of sugar. I know what was going on. Because I'll be having...
You didn't tell them? And you didn't tell your GP what was going on? Or did they even guess what was going on?
I don't think none of the GP ever guessed what was going on. Why am I having this unusual swollen cuts, constant pain, cuts around my private part. They couldn't guess, but I knew. I just have something. I just have swollen around and that was my lifestyle. And not only that, my lifestyle of having maybe 4 to 5 prostitutes Monday to Friday. Then before you know it, at university, I can sleep with a girlfriend at university straight. And then I used to live in Soho. Even up to now, Soho is the home of prostitutes in England anyway.
Yep.
So I'll be coming from uni. I went to Royal Holloway in Egham. I'll be coming from uni. And as soon as I landed in Waterloo Station, I would just have this urge. Straight. I can end up in Soho at 2:00 in the afternoon, and I'll not leave Soho until probably about 11 o'clock at the night, going around looking for different prostitute, moving from one video store to another magazine store. That was my lifestyle. But then
can I just ask a question? So how much were you spending on porn material?
Boy.
Like what were you buying? What kind of stuff were you buying as well?
I'll probably say 90% of my student loan went into sleeping with prostitute, buying magazine, downloading on the internet. I'll probably say yes. Yes, because I wasn't working, and any grant or any student loan that I have, I would rather use my money to sleep with a prostitute or buy internet video or magazine than actually put food on the table. So I was like, it's like a cocaine. You're feeding the addiction constantly. And it was so bad that sometimes, I think there was a time I stole from my girlfriend. I used a card to buy something on the internet. She couldn't believe that. Wow. She gives me everything she could ever have. But why will I use a card to purchase porn? But that was the level of addiction. You can go as far as you could to make sure you get that material to get that material to feed the addiction. So the urge is always there. You're consumed with sex, even when you don't want to have sex, and that's what tends to happen. You start, and that's why I always tell you, that's what you tend to have. You start with loving sex, watching porn, to dislike every form of sex because you don't enjoy it, but you can't stop having it because it's like your body is consumed by it. You can't. It's like a water to your body. You need to have sex to be alive. Even though I will look at the ladies at uni, I don't want to have sex, but you sleep with them. While you're sleeping with them, you can't have ejaculation. I have to imagine myself having sex with a prostitute, and I'm sleeping with another lady. And that's what tends to happen with most of these guys. The kind of image, the kind of women they've been exposed to. Some of them have girlfriends, but those girlfriends can't give them erection. So most of them will having sex. I can guarantee you, they're having sex, but they have to imagine themselves having sex with someone else in order to have erection, because of the kind of images the mind has been exposed. Yeah.
So for you, when with your girlfriends at uni, did they see that as a problem? Like, obviously, I'm assuming
they never knew. None of them knew.
Okay, so they didn't know about your sexual addiction.
None of them knew. They just knew that the guy was good in bed.
So wow, so they knew you were good in bed. They didn't know about your addiction. And were you still able to ejaculate even with them, or is it that you had to think of something?
I have to think of something. I have to think of something. That's what it is, because they can't give me erection. So I was just using them as an outlet.
Wow.
It was just pure outlet. There's nothing else. There was no love. There was no intimacy. It's just to release the urge. And that's how bad it is. That's why you have many guys struggle to have a relationship, because they just cannot ejaculate. Some are so bad. There was a time it's so bad that sometimes I'll just have to, I remember very clearly, I can't mention name, I would just go into the toilet, imagine myself having sex with a prostitute, closing my eyes, and I'll come into the room to have sex, because I'm trying to imagine myself. That's the power of imagination, which we can go into later. Mm-hmm. Imagine myself having sex just to get that erection, come into the room in order to have sex. So she probably won't know what's going on in my mind.
All she knows is all she knows is,
oh, she's like this guy was
he's
this guy's ready. That's
good it. And everything like that, but not knowing that you
mentally I was somewhere else in order for her not to know. So that was the kind of lifestyle I was living. So things were so bad that something happened that I will never forget. So I was down in Soho, a particular store. I mean, everybody knew me on the street of Soho Square.
Wow.
So somebody was asking me. I was asking myself that, okay, I've watched every kind of thing you can ever watch. Um, I mean, BDSM, every kind of thing, choking,
Did you ever try?
gang.
Did you ever try those things?
No, I think that was, I think for me that was, it was something. I think I was playing with in my head then. I was playing with, oh, what would it be like to have an urge on all this threesome, foursome that people tend to have, because you are feeding your mind. So you play with this fantasy in your head. That's the challenge with this thing. You begin to play with fantasy. But one thing I realized was that for me, I began to have this constant thought that, okay, I need to watch same-sex porn. So I said to myself, no, man, no. I started with loving women. How am I going to end up? I don't have a problem with people that watch same-sex, but I said to myself, no chance am I going to do it.
Whoa.
So I was so I started. So for me, it was a battle of those thoughts. So I wake up in the night, I was thinking to myself, you know what? There was no way I'm going to watch same-sex. I'll probably just kill myself, jump. Then I started contemplating suicide. That, okay, should I just stay in front of the train, jump in front of the train? Then I used to live in a nice high rise tower building in South Battersea in London, and I'll be looking down the window that, okay, if I could just jump, all this pain, all these thoughts will just go away. All this, because I wake up with the thoughts, sleep with the thoughts. Okay, you know what? I think just go and watch same-sex. So that was very challenging. Those were the darkest moment of my life. That was when I knew, boy, oh boy, my life, to sleep for me was difficult. I could not sleep without masturbating. There's no way. For me, masturbation was like a drug for me to sleep.
So you
Because
had to. So you had to.
it's like a
So,
sleeping
so
pill.
yeah. So two questions. So you had to, before you slept, you had to masturbate.
I have to
And
masturbate.
the other question was, did you ever engage in, threesomes and all that kind of?
And I don't think I ever did. I never did, even though I spend most of my time, and maybe that was I'll probably say I thank God I never did, but some people tend to. But for me, when you look at the numbers of prostitutes I slept with, or the kind of sexual accounts I had, I mean, not having a threesome or spending all my money on with the strippers, I mean, there's no difference. I think maybe something was just checking me to say, okay, maybe I'm not, I don't want to, I can fantasize it, but I don't want to go to that end. While some people can cross that
Actually,
bridge,
yeah, some people go to and actually do it, and even
actually do it.
becomes even more of a
Yeah.
addiction. So your breaking point was then the thought of having same sex, like having sex with the same with
Yeah,
another
I
man.
think that was my breaking point, because I would just start walking on the street and having this thought that, oh, check out that guy. Because you have to admit that when you spend all your time watching porn and you watch gang sex where you have 20 guys, you're exposed. You see, that's what people don't tend to understand about porn or whatever sex called. You see, the moment you expose your mind, now this is a Christian platform. The moment you expose your mind has seen all sort of things, and spiritually also, you've also exposed yourself to different influences. That's why you can see everyone that watches porn. Some we started with normal porn, and before you know it, they started fantasizing about having sex with younger girls, and they started going towards the line of being a pedophile, and they never started out that way. I've read so much material, studied so much of most of the pedophile. Most of them started innocently with porn, but somewhere along the line, something triggered, because they watch different things, and they just started watching something they shouldn't be watching, and they just get caught up in that circle of you watching young child having sex, and some we get caught up in BDSM, whereby what now give them the urge is no more sex, but to see people being choked, see people being strangled. You see what the high, they're looking for just something else, that new high, like the new drug, something that could just give them. Some of them will stop having sex and say, you know what, I just want my girlfriend to be having sex with animals, to having sex with different people. So it's so funny the level of influence spiritually that people go through, because you can't just imagine.
You
You
can't.
just cannot imagine.
And you know what? And I think this is the first time I'm ever actually going to say this. And I've never ever said this. And I think it's because having this conversation is making me say this. I think I just suddenly realized the first time that I was actually exposed to it. And I was at uni. It was actually university when I was actually exposed to porn for the very first time. And I still remember the day to the day that it happened. And it was just friends. We were just, we were just hanging out in the room. And then, one of the guys, so it was myself and some other girls and some other guys. We were just chilling like we normally do, like a group of us. And then one of them had the video. He was just like, yeah, I've got it. And I was just like, what do you mean? And I was just like, and they were like, so I was like, no, I don't want to watch it. And they're like, no, it's fine. Like, there's nothing. And when he actually put the video on, and we were all watching. I can't believe it. We actually sat in their room and we actually watched it, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I think from that day I was just like, I don't understand why people watch this or even make it as well. And I was just like, and just thinking about it now, and I was like, that was probably the first time I was probably exposed to watching porn.
But do you think that does that help you, or does that trigger something in you as a female to move or say, no, I'm not, this is not something I want to be involved with? Or as a young girl at uni, or you say, no, guys, this is not for me. Is it something inside of, or you just think, you know what, it's not part of me?
Yeah, it's not part of me, because obviously, growing up Christian, everything like that, we know that that's not, it's
very good.
It's not the way whatsoever. And it was a bit disgusting, and I felt like it played on my mind a little bit as well, because I was just like seeing that image of men and women, that this is not me. And for me, I'd not had sex. So imagine for someone at university of age who's never had sex at all, being exposed to something like that. And I think, like you, it can awaken certain things that shouldn't be awakened.
Absolutely.
At all. And then you get that urge and everything like that. And I'm grateful that was the first and last time that I saw something like that. And I was just like, I don't want to watch this again. I don't want to watch this again, because I can't disturb my mindset and think this is what sex is, because I know this isn't sex. This is, because it was like, this is not what sex should be like, not with so many other people, one woman to 10 men, each one of them taking their turns. It's like, that's not what sex is. It's just for one man, one woman in a covenant. Absolutely. So, just saying that, it's crazy. Like, that's the first time I'm actually gonna like say that out loud, that was the first time I was exposed to it. And now I see why it can be people can get addicted to it. Once You've seen it, it plays on your mind, and then you think, okay, I want to explore. Okay, what other ones out there? What other things are out there? And then next thing you know, you've gone down this deep rabbit hole.
Absolutely, there's no end. There's no end to the rabbit hole. There's never an end to it, and that is why it's difficult for me when you work with loads of young men, young teenagers, married couples. It's difficult because some want freedom, but they don't really want to live the pleasure. It's like you want that fun, that sex, but at the same time you want the freedom, but want that to go. Because that exposure, you see, you cannot be exposed. Sometimes when I even see some of this material, what made me sad is just that nowadays you have the advanced way whereby webcams, whereby the masturbation level has gone off the roof. Whereby right now is webcams, people are masturbating to each other, and you could just see relationship, men getting involved with it, men and women newlywed, not knowing the background of the guy not knowing the background of the woman, thinking this guy is a virgin, celibacy, but the guy is messed up. I've worked with couples whereby 5 years no sex.
5 years no sex, and is that because they never admitted or divulged the fact that they had an issue, that they had a...
No, the guy couldn't have sex. He couldn't
He
have
couldn't
sex
have
with the
sex
wife
at all.
because the addiction is so used to different women. The woman, the new wife, doesn't give him any stimulation. He just can't have the erection. The mind is just totally off. The woman can be naked, but he just could not. The woman was going mental, thinking, what happened to my life?
So why is it that men or women get married and then are not able to perform? Because you've kind of like, not only are you've taken away that experience or that passion from your spouse because you have this addiction, but then you didn't tell them that this is what you're going through. You're now in this union together where you're supposed to consummate, but you can't. And then that other partner's feeling like, what did I do? He doesn't love me, or she doesn't love me, she doesn't want me, and all this and that. So why do men or women get into marriages, still marry people, even though they have these issues?
Most women never knows the guys have the issues. The guys always, you see, the funny part about all this subject of sex and addiction, that most men never thought they have an issue. They just think that it'll be okay. They never thought, or they think they can hide it, that it'll be okay. But when you enter a committed relationship and you can't have sex, then you know you are trapped. Because before you got married, you can wiggle your way out. Oh, I'm busy. I've got to do this. Or we shouldn't be having sex. But when you are married and you are locked in the same relation with one person, you got to tell your woman why you don't want to have sex. You must be able to tell your woman why you can't have erection. Let's try to eliminate why men might have issue with sex. Maybe there's a medical reasons. Maybe
There's
some
that
are
too. Yep.
going through depression and they're taking some drugs. It could affect. I've actually seen that there's loads of statistics to prove that, and it's affecting their erection, which is normal. Some might just have a very, very low libido, and they just don't. That desire for sex is not just there. But if you could eliminate all those areas medically, and you say, okay, fine, we've removed, there's no medical reasons, you're not depressed, you're happy with life. Question: why are we as newly couples, or even as old couples, are we not having sex? So you might, unless you're getting it outside. Is that you're having a girlfriend, or you're living with a prostitute? You must be getting it outside, or you're into same sex. Something must be happening. You see, you got to understand this is a fact, and that's why we've got to be very clear in this broadcast. Is that you're going through a sexual issue whereby you don't know your sexuality, with your man or your woman, or you're into same sex, or you're having a woman by the side, you're having a prostitute by the side, you're watching porn, and you're going through medical reasons, or you are sexual. You start eliminating. I call it the law of elimination. You taking one by one out, and by the time you go through that, you have to come to a particular reason why.
Yeah.
Even if you have a low libido, then there's something you can do. But you just have to have a reason why we're married and we're not having sex. What's going on here? You sign up for this.
Yeah. So, back to you. Did you self-diagnose, or was it something that a sex therapist said that you have an addiction? Or did you know that you had an addiction, self-diagnosing yourself, or was it someone that said that
excuse me, I don't think you need a therapist to tell you that if you're spending 7 hours of your time every day,
it's an addiction,
watching porn, you're ready to let go of your lectures. You're ready to just stay in the room, like I have it in my studio now. Lock yourself in the room all day, watch porn, masturbate, leave the house, sleep with a prostitute. You don't need a rocket science to tell you that something's wrong with you mentally. Or what I call this, there's something you call the street lust. Street lust simply means you're walking on the street, LUST, and you're just imagining sleeping with those girls you see on the street. That's what some of these guys, people don't know what's going on. Some of these guys are just walking around and they're just taking a photograph of these women on the street, and come the night time they want to masturbate, they just be playing this image of sleeping with these women. So on the street they're just having sex. Some guys can be walking on the street and be stripping down a woman in their mind and having sex with them. That's the power of the mind and imagination.
Crazy.
It's this deep stuff.
Okay, so for you came to a point where, like, you started having thoughts of same-sex experiences, you know, having sex with another man, that for you say was a breaking point. So what then happened after that? Like, so
I think
how did you then begin to think that for you, that's a low, I need to change? Like, what did you then start to do? Where did you check
I
yourself
think for
into?
me,
Who did you start
uh,
talking to?
Easter period, getting ready for my final year exams. I was sitting down and I just couldn't assimilate anything I was reading. I couldn't comprehend every information because then for me to concentrate, I needed to masturbate. For me
Wow.
to concentrate, for the brain to focus for me, I needed to masturbate. So here was I, this particular Easter period, and I was crying that, wow, am I going to repeat my final year exam again? How am I going to do it? I was crying, I was sobbing, I was watching porn, I was masturbating, and I was like, Lord, if you are ever there, boy, I need help. This life is over for me. I can't just go like this, man. So that day, many times I tried to break that addiction, just to break it. But come nighttime, I would go back, start download. But this particular day, simple prayer in my room, I took my black bin bag, and emptied every materials you can ever think of. I think I had a full black bin bag, emptied every material. Went to the dumpster, threw the black bag away. I remember clearly I called my friend back at uni that, look, exam is coming up. I needed a place to stay so I could just revise. It was when I left my home, I knew God was helping me to leave my old environment. Because my environment, I've been used to environment. I know places, which room I usually masturbate, which bed I usually sleep to masturbate. So moving from that environment was the biggest step I took that particular day. And that started the journey. But even as a Christian, because even though I said I want to give my life to the Lord, I remember clearly I would go to church and I was sitting down in the church. I'll be having the thoughts like, wow, watching porn, masturbating is bad. And I'll be having, I'll be sitting in the church, I'll be having the dialogue in my head. But I'm
So
not
you
having
went there. So you were going to church. You were thinking of masturbate. You were thinking of sex. You were thinking of
but
just marriage. But
yeah,
like,
but
but you weren't connected. So whatever was being preached, it's like you were. It's like, were you just going to church just to say that I go to church, but not really, being fully immersed and active in being
no, not
Christian?
really, because when I prayed that prayer, I just said, I needed to change my life because I was just tired of living. If you're at the road where you started contemplating of killing yourself, believe me, it's a bad place to be
Also,
at.
not it's not the
So
best place to be
I
at
was
at all.
started then I would go to church, but this was the deal, because when I started going to church, I stopped having sex with girls. It was difficult, but I'll be in church and I'm telling myself, but I'm not having sex with anyone. Nothing is wrong with masturbating and watching porn. It's just me. So it's like I was having discussion in my head. I've been discussing in my head that, okay, but this the constant condemnation. Like I just felt guilty. Like, gosh, I'll go home, watch porn after church, and I like, what am I doing this to myself? But I remember the day I sat down on my bed. I said, no, man, enough is enough. Boy, I don't wish the journey of freedom I don't wish it on anyone, because it was challenging. Boy, it was challenging because you've trained your body for 13, 14 years. You've trained your mind, your brain. Even neuroscience have actually said your brain goes through a lot of structural changes whenever you're having a thought or you're thinking on a particular subject. So imagine a 12 years old brain constantly, 12 years having a brain that has constantly think on sex. The brain structure. So you could see my entire body was just, boy, night I would sleep at night, wake up having erection, ejaculation, men cause the wet dreams. And sometimes 3 to 4 times at night. And I'll be crying like, boy, how do I experience freedom? So, but it was a journey. I think it took me 2 years to really, it was a battle. It was like being on the war front. But, freedom for me was step by step. A day turns into, I remember the first day I didn't masturbate going to bed. The first week I slept without masturbating. Boy, I was jumping the entire street. I was like, wow, I could sleep for a week without masturbating.
Mm-hmm.
So it was building that momentum, building that capacity. And here we are 14 years later, 15, 16 years. I've never masturbated once because, boy, I won't want to do it. Anybody wants to do it, that's their cup of tea. But for me, freedom is sweet.
True.
Freedom.
Very much. So in the time, obviously, you prayed and you're like, God, I don't want to live this life anymore, which is a big step for anybody to do when you really want to surrender everything. How did you get better? Like, what things were you practically doing in terms of, getting on that journey to being free? Because obviously, yes, you've prayed that prayer, yeah, but then there is a journey to freedom. There is a journey to being completely to being completely like not thinking about it, nothing at all. Like, what is that?
So I remember, and this is a very good question, and this is going to help the audience. This is where I always said many decide to live with the addiction and said, okay, Elisha, because there's a place where you get to, it's like the end of the road. And is it that you go to the war front to win the battle or you die on the battlefield? There's no going back. You made the mental decision. Is it that freedom or death? It must be freedom. There is no option for going back. Many people have option. They love the pleasure. So they want freedom, but they don't. So for me, it was more of a no. I'm going to gain this freedom. So that decision is like the anchor that even in the midst of the strongest battle, I was ready to pay the price. So I remember clearly where I wasn't reading the Bible. I would just be looking at the Bible. I would kneel down sometimes in my room for hours, crying and say, Lord, help me. Times I'll be having constant thought of masturbating, and I'll be going around my house telling myself, today I'm not touching myself. Today I'm not touching myself. Today I'm not watching porn. My brother will be telling me, please, you are shouting. Can you just put your voice down? But I will just say, no, today I'm not going to masturbate. Today I'm not going to watch porn. Then I had an iPod. Then I was constantly listening to the word of God in my ears. And sometimes I felt like this word is not working. I'll be walking around telling myself, I'm not going to watch porn. Lord, help me. I'm not going to watch porn. I'll go to bed. I'll have erection. I'll have a dream of sleeping with a prostitute. And I'll wake up again crying like, gosh, am I ever going to be Am I ever going to be free? So, there wasn't a particular picture. It was a gradual process. You realize that, I just realized that rather than watching porn, I realized that, it's so funny. I'll say, wow, I've not watched porn this morning. That was my victory. That's how I measure my victory. My victory was so simple that I could say, wow, I've not watched porn this morning. What? I've not watched porn this afternoon. Wow. I was measuring little victory. Because for me, if you have somebody that's been watching porn that can watch porn for 24 hours, for me, not watching porn in the morning, not watching porn in the afternoon, not watching porn in the night was a big. So I was building that momentum gradually. Then I was like a loner, no friends, because all my friends then were watching porn.
So all your friends were watching porn as well, but
back at university we always laugh at ourselves. They would just laugh. We laugh at each other.
So then addicted? Were any of them addicted? Was it just?
I did. You see, that's the question. You see, that's what I'm saying. I started young, so I didn't know when they started watching porn. But I started very young. So I didn't know whether they were addicted, but I was. So for me, I had no friends. I was just a man alone. Sometimes I would just be in my room crying. And I think one of the key things that helped me as well was that I would take scriptures. Say, for example, there's a particular scripture that helped me so much. That was 2 Corinthians 5:17. I'm a new creation. So when I look at this word, I'll just put it and that's the thing I always tell people and the audience, because I've learned the act of masturbation and I understood that I could imagine myself having sex and my body will react. So I could just take the scriptures and I'll just close my eyes and I'll just be imagining myself walking in freedom. I'll just be imagining myself walking around my house. I was not touching myself. So I was learning to play out those freedom in my mind before I could even say it. So it was like I remember the first time I had the inspiration from the Holy Spirit to start using imagination. Lady T, I said no chance. Imagination, no chance.
To do what?
Because I was used, the only thing I knew to do my imagination is to masturbate. But Holy Spirit is telling me the same imagination have to be used for your freedom.
Wow.
So it was a battle. So it's like, what? To imagine myself, because come on, can you imagine that the only thing I do when I close my mind is to imagine myself doing something? So I was so scared to close my eyes to even imagine myself walking in freedom. It was a battle. That's why I said it's a process. So when I see people say, "Oh, I want a 21 days, 90 days quick fix," I just laugh. I'm just thinking, you are in the wrong place. You are in the wrong. You need to look for someone else. Because that retraining, the retraining of not only do you need to, number one, change the entire environment. You now need to start learning to capture all your thoughts. Learn to listen to the thoughts, filter out thoughts. Before I will entertain every sexual thought, see any woman, sexualize it. Now I have to say no. Learn to discard thoughts, take new thoughts, begin to program those new thoughts. Boy, I remember the first time I was dancing in my room because I could start learning to comprehend normal information. I could read and I could understand. Because that was how distorted my entire brain was. I couldn't focus. I couldn't even read. So it took time. It took a lot of time and patience. Someone said, "Did they have the counselor?" I just think being alone. I didn't have the counselor, but boy, maybe Holy Spirit was my counselor. But that 2-3 years, boy. So when
do you think you should have had? Because someone could be listening to this thing and thinking, all I need is the Holy Spirit and Jesus. But really, I mean, having someone to actually counsel you and talk you through this as well as prayers is just as important. So
I think it's actually fundamentally key. But it depends on the individual. Because some people are just not ready. And some people want a coach, but they want free coach. So they want people to spend time. And I'm thinking, I can't spend time with you Monday to Sunday. Because but you always just provide materials for people. But the question I always tell people is, what price? When I say price, I'm talking about monetary price. What are you willing to do? Are you ready to war? When I use the word war, go to battle, the man knows what I mean. Because the pleasure and freedom, you need to decide. There is no middle ground. You either go for freedom or you hold on to pleasure of masturbating, watching porn. That's where the battle began. So is the anchor of decision. You cannot underestimate the power of it, because you'll be tempted. Even today, I still get tempted. But that anchor of I'm gonna win this battle. Is it I win the battle? And I'm so thankful that, winning the battle, staying free for 7 years before I got married. I would have destroyed my wife if I went straight to. There's no way I could have a healthy relationship if I've gone to my marriage with that kind of mindset.
Which brings me to this next part of the conversation. I think, obviously you went through all of this. Did you think that you would ever, be delivered from it, or did you ever think you would heal from it? And also, did you feel that you would never get to the point of marriage because of your addiction, because of the imaginations that go through your mind and, what you've been going through, what you were exposed to at such a young age? Did you ever think that marriage is never a possibility for me?
To be honest, I wasn't ready to get married. I said to myself, I don't want to touch any woman. I just want to be free. You can't go through, see, that's what kind of lifestyle you go through. I don't want to see a naked woman. I'm not even interested to. I remember my mentor saying to me that no. Marriage actually completes the healing and restoration.
Does it?
It does, because it gives you the confidence that the past is the past and you can start afresh.
But some people don't want to let go of the past and take the past into their marriage, and
that's why it destroys it.
destroying
And that's
the
why
marriage.
it destroys the marriage, because you can't bring that mentality into your marriage. You cannot. No normal woman can sustain that. You cannot. You want to do all kind of stuff for your woman, no matter how much that woman loves you. And to be honest with you, most of those guys can't have normal sexual experience, because they can't, because what stimulates them is not that woman anymore. They've messed up mentally. Spiritually, they're not there anymore. So for me, it was just freedom.